Hello and welcome to the Elements of Innovation Elite Inventor Crash Course. This section is on patent basics, the 7 things you need to know about patents. It's broken up into 3 sections. The patent basics section talks about the 3 hurdles that every invention must clear in order to be patentable. The second section talks about the patent process. Well, there are many aspects to the patent process. What we will talk about is the 2 most important things that you need to know in order to be an elite inventor, plus a bonus section on whether or not software is patentable. Spoiler alert, yes. And finally, patent insights. What are the 2 key insights that elite inventors look for in a patent in order to come up with better ideas faster? So here we go. Let's get started. In our previous video, we talked about the 4 types of inventions, and in this video, we talk about what hurdles each invention must be able to leap over in order to be patentable. The 3 hurdles can be defined in legalese in terms of utility, novelty, and non-obviousness, or in plain English, is your invention useful, is it new, and is it not obvious? These are the 3 hurdles that every invention must clear in order to be patentable. So the question is, how high or how low are these hurdles, and how do you overcome them? Our first hurdle is utility or usefulness. How useful does your idea or invention have to be? Does it just have to be minimally useful, moderately useful, or incredibly useful? Let's figure out where that bar is. Here are a couple of example patents, real, actual issued patents to look at in order for us to decide where that level might be. This first one is a patent from 1995 titled Method of Exercising a Cat. What you see here is a person with a laser pointer pointing it around the room and having the cat chase it. This is an actual issued U.S. patent. So, where do you think that the bar for usefulness might lie? High or low? Right now, I'm thinking low. Here is another example of an actual patent titled Apparatus for Facilitating the Birth of a Child by Centrifugal Force. This is once again an actual U.S. patent. There is a woman and a net and a centrifugal force machine. So once again, how useful would this be? You can probably answer that yourself. Here is our final example for hurdle 1. How useful does your invention actually need to be? And this is a patent for a fantasy football system. So, we have looked at a few examples, and now we can decide that the bar for usefulness is fairly low. An invention, in order to be patentable, must simply be minimally useful for its intended purpose. In support of that, the Patent Office has an entire section that reviews board games and video games and things like that. So usefulness is a fairly low hurdle that you must overcome with your invention. Now let's look at our second hurdle, novelty or newness. How new does your idea have to be in order to be patentable? Does it have to be merely incremental? Does it have to be a clear improvement, or must it be groundbreaking in order to be patentable? Well, here is an example of a patent in the art of coffee cup sleeves. This patent was issued in 1993. It's a coffee cup sleeve made of corrugated cardboard. Yes, it's an actual issued patent. More recently, in the year 2000, here is another cardboard sleeve patent that was issued. In this case, apparently someone did a heat transfer study and decided that dimples were better than corrugated cardboard, and that was enough newness in order to be granted patent protection. And here is our third example of newness. This came out in 2013. Rather than trying to come up with a better sleeve, they decided that your fingers are going to burn no matter what. And so instead of coming up with a better sleeve, they came up with a little thumb tab so you do not have to grip so tightly. That was enough newness in order to be awarded patent protection. So how high is this hurdle? Once again, the hurdle is fairly low. Any sliver of newness is enough to be awarded patentability for your invention. So using the 4 types of inventions that we talked about in the previous video will get you at an invention that is new enough to be afforded patent protection. Here we are at our final hurdle for patentability. Non-obviousness. How non-obvious must your idea be? Can it still be pretty obvious and get a patent? Does it have to be obvious to a lot of people? Can it be patented if it's still obvious to some people, or does it have to be obvious to no one? This is a much more complicated hurdle, but we will get through it nonetheless. When we talk about whether something is obvious or not, the question we have to ask is obvious to who? And in the patent world, what we ask is, would the invention at the time that it was created been obvious to a person of ordinary skill in the art, or posita for short? This person of ordinary skill in the art is a legal fiction. It is an imaginary person who has read all of the patents and literature in your area of art in every language, but does not have access to any confidential information, and also perhaps has very little actual creativity. So the question when we talk about whether something is or is not obvious is not a bright line. It is an argument and a decision upon which reasonable minds may disagree about where that line may be, but nonetheless, it is a question of whether a person of ordinary skill in the art would have thought that the idea was obvious. More importantly, it is not a question about whether or not a patent is obvious to you, because you are not a person of ordinary skill in the art. You have access to confidential information. You have perhaps more imagination and creativity than this imaginary person of ordinary skill in the art actually is deemed to have. And so therefore, many, many patents that are issued may appear to be obvious to you, but that is not the measure of obviousness. It's very important that you understand this. Obviousness is the question of this posita, person of ordinary skill in the art, and it is an argument about where that line should be drawn. Let's go to some examples. Here is my favorite example of the question of obviousness using the technology of suitcases on wheels. In the year 1972, someone by the name of Sado invented the idea of a suitcase on wheels. The problem with his invention is he used very, very tiny wheels and a flexible handle. So if you tried to go fast, it would fall over. If you tried to turn a corner, it would also fall over. In other words, the invention was a failure. Along comes a person by the name of Plath. He realized that if you made a wider wheelbase and used larger wheels and a rigid handle, you would have a more stable control of the suitcase. And he got a patent on that. So, is this an obvious improvement over the previous patent? Let's look at some more details about this case. The original patent came out in 1972. The following patent was filed in 1989 and issued in 1992. In between those two patents, 4 billion people traveled on airplanes and tripped over their luggage and did not think of this seemingly obvious improvement. Until 1989, when, a mere 20 years after we landed on the moon, someone perfected the concept of wheels on luggage. The important takeaway here is that something is only obvious if it would have been obvious to a person of ordinary skill in the art at the time the invention was made. In other words, you cannot use hindsight to decide that something was obvious. More importantly, or also, it is only a question of obviousness to this person of ordinary skill in the art, not a question of obviousness to you. So here is our final summary of the 3 hurdles that you must overcome for your invention to be patentable. It must be useful, which is a low hurdle. It must be new, which is a low hurdle. And it must be non-obvious to a person of ordinary skill in the art who is an imaginary person. And we have an argument about where that line can be drawn. Sometimes it might seem unbelievably low, other times unbelievably high. There's a few insights we need to gain from this, though. Insight number 1, it is easier to get a patent than you probably generally thought before seeing this video. Insight number 2, the patents that are granted are much narrower in scope than you probably would have expected. For example, no one has a patent on the coffee cup sleeve. They only have patents on very specific embodiments of coffee cup sleeves. Insight number 3, it is not a simple black and white process. There is some degree of uncertainty about whether or not an idea may get a patent based upon the question of whether or not or how obvious the idea might be. Now let's move on to the patent process, the two most important things that you need to know. There are many things in the patent process, but these are the two things to know as an elite inventor. Here is a picture of the patent process timeline. The first thing that happens after you come up with your invention is you meet with a patent attorney and they prepare a patent application and they file it with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. In general, now there are always exceptions to these steps, but in general, 18 months after you file your patent application, it is published as a patent application. Not an actual patent, but a published patent application. And then, somewhere in a 3 to 5 year period after you file your patent and after it's published, it may be issued as an actual patent. This is the basic patent process. That time period between the patent application being filed and the patent being issued as an actual patent is the period that you can call patent pending. You do not have an actual patent, but you have a patent pending. During that pending process, you will argue with the United States Patent and Trademark Office about whether or not your patent should be granted. The Patent Office will tell you that it's not new. You will say, yes, it is. They will tell you that it's obvious, and you will say, no, it's not. And you will argue about that person of ordinary skill in the art thinking it was or was not obvious. And eventually, hopefully, it will issue into an actual patent. So here's thing number one that you need to know about this process. You need to know the difference between a published patent application and an actual issued patent. You can tell the difference between a patent application and an issued patent by the publication number versus the patent number at the top. A published patent application has a publication number with a 4-digit year at the beginning of it, and it also has a publication date. As opposed to, on the right, a patent has a patent number. They are ordered sequentially. We are right now in the 10 millions for patents. And they also have a date of patent, so you know that it's a patent that you're looking at, not a published application. This is a thing that you need to be able to recognize simply by looking at these numbers. Thing number two, here is why it's important to know the difference between a published patent application and an actual patent. You need to know how to read what are called the claims of a patent or published patent application. What you see on the right here is a mosaic of the entire patent. The first few pages of this patent are drawings. The next few pages of the patent are the description that teach you how to make and use the invention. And finally, at the end of the document are what are called the claims of the patent. If you think of the patent as a legal document, the claims are essentially a law. No one in the United States can make, use, or sell an invention fitting the description of the claims of the patent. So here is where you need to pay attention. On the left side, we have the claims as originally filed for the lane change notification patent by Waymo. On the right-hand side, we have the actual claims as issued by Waymo. What that means is the claims on the left-hand side are not actually patented. So if you look at them and you think that it's obvious, you may in fact be right. On the right-hand side are the actual claims that were issued. And so those are the ones that you have to respect if you are trying to design around Waymo's patents. What I have highlighted here is the difference between Claim 1 in the patent application and Claim 1 in the actual issued patent. If you think back to the 4 types of inventions, you can see they may have had to add a new combination or a new improvement or multiple types of elements of invention in order to get their patent issued. For example, they may have had to add this detail that this was all occurring in an autonomous driving mode as an improvement over this occurring in a non-autonomous driving mode. We will look at claims in more detail in a moment. What I want you to take away are the 2 things that you need to know when you're looking at a patent or published patent application. Thing 1, you need to know the difference. Are you looking at a published patent application or are you looking at an actual issued patent? Thing number 2, the important thing to look at are the claims of the patent, what they actually cover. Oh yeah, that's right. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that's software. Is software patentable? If you look at this issued patent, early object detection for unprotected turns, issued to Waymo, It is an issued patent, first of all, so that should tell you something. And it looks like a method for maneuvering a vehicle using some sort of a software or algorithm. But yet, it's a patent. But here's the trick. In general, algorithms are not patentable, and it looks like this patent is an algorithm. But here's the catch. The algorithm has a physical manifestation, and that's the trick to getting software patents, is the algorithm has to have some sort of physical manifestation in the real world. And what Waymo has done in many of their patents is added a phrase like this, doing the algorithm and then, as you see highlighted here, causing the vehicle to take a first action in response to detecting the object, blah, blah, blah. They have created a physical manifestation of that algorithm, and that is how they get around the problems of getting a software patent. That is not something for you to worry about. It is something for your patent attorney to worry about. So if you have a software invention, don't worry about whether or not it's patentable. You present it to your patent attorney, and they will figure out how to get a patent on it. It's their job, not yours. In your own mind, you just need to accept the fact that yes, people are getting software patents, and you should too. Okay, we are on our final section here, patent insights. The two key insights elite inventors look for in a patent. How do we extract value from the information that we can obtain from these patents? Let's look at this actual patent issued to Waymo for early object detection for unprotected turns. What I'm showing you here is a drawing from that patent and the first claim. What we want to extract from this patent is the problem statement and the solution statement. We want to figure out what problem are they trying to solve and how did they solve it. In order to arrive at your problem and solution statement, you might be able to just read the claims and look at some pictures and come to an answer. Sometimes you might have to read the entire patent. Sometimes you might have to talk with other people. It will depend upon the type of area that you're looking at and your experience looking at patents. Nonetheless, here is my attempt at deciphering this patent. Here is my problem statement. How to take action based on an object that is detected at a greater distance and lower confidence level than preferred. Okay, so in plain English, how do I make a decision based on something that's far away and I'm not really quite sure what it is, right? That's the problem they're trying to solve in making these unprotected turns. Here is my solution statement. Determine that the low confidence object warrants an action, such as yielding, deceleration, or switching lanes. So in plain English, I can say, I'm not sure what that thing is, but it might be another car or it might be a pedestrian, so I better slow down. Right? That's an example of a problem solution statement. Now, what do you do with this? These are the two key insights that elite inventors look for in a patent, because here is what you can do. From the problem statement, you're able to then understand what problem they are trying to solve. And then you can ask yourself, are they solving the right problem? If not, then you can be the one to solve the right problem. When you put together the solution statement, you then can ask, have they actually solved the problem that they thought they were solving? Secondly, you can ask yourself, is there a different way to solve the same problem? Perhaps better, faster, cheaper, easier, simpler, and so on. These are the key insights that elite inventors look for when looking at a patent. And so we come to the end of this video. We have learned a lot. We've learned 7 things that you need to know about patents in a short amount of time. We've learned the patent basics, the 3 hurdles that every patent must clear. It must be useful, new, and non-obvious. We've learned the 2 things you need to know about the patent process, knowing the difference between a patent and a published patent application, and how to look at the claims. Also, that software is indeed patentable. If you talk to your patent attorney, they'll figure out a way. And finally, patent insights. The 2 things that elite inventors look for is the problem statement and the solution statement, and they use that to come up with better ideas faster. That's the end of this section. Our next video is Invention Basics Part 2, the innovation equation, how to tell if your ideas, or those of others, are any good, and why the know-it-when-I-see-it approach doesn't work. It's a simple formula that shows you how to separate the good from the bad and the ugly. I'll see you there.